All right, joining me on the line today is author, researcher Marcus Curtis, and he's also a friend of the show. He's been actually around for a while. We've actually even interviewed Marcus before in the past on the program about the Iraqi dinar. He's an author and a researcher. His latest book is one of his latest books is entitled The Coming Global Currency Reset. Fascinating topic. Marcus, great to have you on the program.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yeah, let's kind of fill in the audience a little bit about your connection to FTMDaily. You've been around for quite a while. I mean, you've been following our work. You were one of the very first people who bought our book, Bankruptcy of Our Nation, and you began implementing many of the things and strategies in the book. Why don't you tell the folks a little bit about your experience with us and how we helped influence what you're doing now?
Well, it was after the 2008 meltdown. I was looking for solutions other than the stock market. And so I bought your book, and I checked out your site, and I found the book to be absolutely fascinating. I mean, there were so many things that I didn't know. It was basically my wake-up call. And what happened was I was implementing some of the procedures that you outlined, and I got into trouble because I veered away from the things you said. I strayed away from what you said on currencies and other things, and I got involved with the Iraqi dinar, which basically wound up being a get-rich-quick scheme. And it wasn't what you outlined or what you recommended, but I got that way anyway because, I didn't know anything. I was green, and I started a blog because I had a lot of people asking me questions about the dinar as I was discovering information about it. So I started blogging about the dinar in 2010, and that's when I started a major study on economics. And by 2012, I realized that the whole thing was a scam and that the dinar is not going to do what people say it's going to do. Currencies don't revalue 1,000% or 100,000%. And when you have over 70 trillion dinar out there, that can't revalue to a price that's more than the global economy. So once I started realizing how money actually works and compared that to what people were saying about the dinar, I started blogging against the dinar. And it made a lot of people mad, but my only concern was the truth. I needed to get to the heart of what the truth was. And everybody needed to know that because I had a lot of people reading my site, and I felt responsible.
Yeah, I remember we had you on the program, and you were talking about the Iraqi dinar. It's always been one of those topics, Marcus, that we receive questions on. We don't receive nearly as many questions anymore. I think more people are waking up now. But I remember back around 2010 when you were talking, when the book first came out, there were many people, and especially former military guys who were over in Iraq, serving in Iraq, coming back with hordes of these Iraqi dinars, swearing that they were going to go up in value.
Right.
Many people actually started buying them online. You could buy them on eBay, and it became real popular to buy them because the thought was, like you said, they were going to revalue the currency, and it was suddenly going to become, this much more valuable currency. So all this money was going to be made, and they used the Kuwaiti dinar as kind of a template as to why back in the Gulf War I and a few other currencies as well. And it just really has fooled a lot of people. And when I'm out talking today at a conference, and if I ever get a question about the dinar, and I wanted to see if you agree with this, but this is what you've done more research on it than I have. I focus on more of the stable foreign currencies for my own portfolio, but what I typically say about the Iraqi dinar is simply this. It's like a lottery ticket, It really is a lottery ticket. You're probably not going to make a bunch of money from it. You could. I mean, there is a slim chance that something could happen, I guess, and you could make a lot of money, but certainly don't view it as a financial strategy. View it as a lottery ticket.
Right.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of people, and you've probably met them, Marcus, who poured a ton of money into this.
Right. Well, the thing is, it's not even a lottery ticket. It's worse than that. The Iraqi central bank has 36 trillion dinar outside of the banking structure. Now, to give you an idea of how much that is, our M2 in the United States is 11.5 trillion. So they have 3 times the amount of money outside their banking structure that we have in entire circulation in the M2. And this is their M1 I'm talking about. Then out of that, about 30 trillion dinar is outside their borders. They don't have the massive inflation because they've been exporting their currency on the same bogus lie. And there's lie after lie after lie that's lined up. And you mentioned Kuwait earlier. Well, Kuwaiti dinar never revalued. And what a revalue is basically when a central bank needs to adjust their currency value because of inflation. And it happens at 2%, 3%, 5% at most. If the dinar today were to go to a penny, just 1 penny, that would be 1,000% revalue. And currencies don't do this because revalues of this nature bring in hyperinflation. If the dinar would go to $1, like people are talking, you're looking at 100,000% revalue, and you're looking at, what is it now, 91 trillion dinar, that's worth 1164 to the dollar, or somewhere around that, 1166 maybe to the dollar, being revalued to a bigger value past the global economy itself, and that in currency will just implode on itself. There's no way they can do it. And the Kuwaiti bank never revalued their currency. They never did this. What happened is revalue is done by a central bank, and it's only with currencies that are pegged to another currency. Okay, so like the dinar is pegged to the dollar, so it'll be versus the dollar that they revalue that from. And the Kuwaiti dinar, what happened is that Saddam invaded Kuwait and everybody left, and it was the black market that made the Kuwaiti dinar fall. And people who left brought Kuwaiti dinar with them, and they traded it to Jordan and other countries that they went to, and it fell as low as 10%. But then in October of 90, Saddam invalidates the Kuwaiti dinar, and he says that you need to exchange this dinar for the Iraqi dinar. Well, then we went to war in the first Gulf War, and by 1991, Kuwait was up, and the value of the dinar was restored, but it was never adjusted by the central bank, and that's what a revalue is. A revalue is something that the central bank does. But
yeah, and that's what they point to, Marcus, when they say that it went up, and they talk about how much money they made on that that quote-unquote revaluation. My guest today is Marcus Curtis. He is author of a book entitled The Coming Global Currency Reset. I want to talk about what you've written in this book, Marcus, because there is a lot of belief out there perpetuated by many different areas or many different outlets that we're going to see a global currency reset, maybe a global currency revaluation, similar to what we're talking about here with the Iraqi dinar, where suddenly the central bank is going to revalue the currency. And suddenly everything's going to be different. And some people will stand to make money in that situation. Others will lose money in that. Now, you have written a book that basically debunks the idea. Why don't you, first of all, explain what you mean by global currency reset? Because I know there's a lot of different definitions out there. And secondly, explain why you believe what you believe about it.
Well, like I said, a lot of this comes from my personal study of economics, but the global currency reset gets its roots through a law called Nasera that never actually became law. And out of this Nasera, and it goes back to the history of all this, we get this global currency reset. And basically the idea of the global currency reset is an overnight crash of the dollar, and then all these other currencies are going to revalue, and gold is going to shoot up, and silver is going to shoot up, and the world is going to change as we know it in one night. And that is not at all what's going to happen. And the reason why is because the dollar is entrenched. It's very entrenched. You have the BRICS nations, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These are the 5 emerging economies, and these economies have U.S. dollars in their reserves to the tune of $4 trillion. You have, not only is the dollar used as a reserve, it's used to buy oil, but not only is it used to buy oil, it's the exclusive currency of Ecuador. It's the exclusive currency of Panama and Zimbabwe and the Bahamas and all these other countries that have the dollar exclusively, that don't have their own currency. If the dollar were to crash overnight, these economies would be wiped out. The BRICS nations would be wiped out. And what are they going to replace it with? And there's a lot of myths that are put out there. And the reason why these myths are put out there is because people have agendas. They want you to believe what they want you to believe because they have something to sell you. They have either a newsletter, or they're selling food, or they're selling some precious metals.
You nailed it. You nailed it, Marcus. That's exactly it. You know, I've seen this since I came out in back in 2008 when the economic crisis was unfolding. You know, I was moving my investments out of the markets right before the crash, and as we moved into 2009, I saw all of these armchair economists just all of a sudden set up shop. Like you said, there were blogs, there were economic experts everywhere. And they were all selling something, but many of their fantastic tales that they told completely were deflated whenever you confronted them with basic logic. And I think that's what you've done fun with this little booklet that you've created, The Coming Global Currency Reset, where you basically say, look, let's apply logic to this idea and see if it can stand up.
Right, and they're using fear tactics to sell their products. I think that's the thing that got to me more than anything else. I don't like scaring people to death and say, unless you buy my product, you're going to die. That's basically what's the thing is.
Well, that's what a lot of them are doing, and
exactly.
in fact, there's I don't want to name the name of the newsletter publisher because they're a big newsletter publisher, and they're respectable as well in many ways. But you and I have talked about this before in the past, how they continues to say the dollar is going to die on this day, and they give a day. I think the last one they said was July 1st, 2014.
Right.
Of course, that's the day to the very day when the massive uptrend in the dollar actually began. So they called the uptrend, but they didn't call it an uptrend. They called it a downtrend, and so they got it wrong. But they certainly the dollar certainly moved on that day.
Right.
Now I see that they have a new date that they're pushing, and that's in October of this year. So many people out there are confused. They hear all of these different predictions, and this book that you've written kind of explains some of the logic that goes against a lot of that speculation.
Right.
Let's dive into the book for a minute. What's the book about? I mean, you cover a whole lot of history in this book. I've read through it. How many pages? It's pretty brief, isn't it? You can read it in a few days.
Yeah, it's just brief. You can read it. It's about 70-something pages when I typed it up. It turned out to be like 100 pages on an ebook reader on Amazon. But it's just brief. But it basically what it does is it debunks the conspiracy theories. What these guys are doing is they're creating conspiracy theories to sell their wares. They can't crash the dollar overnight, because if they crash the dollar overnight, all these other nations will fall. Brazil will fall, Russia will fall, China will fall, because what they have is dollars. They need to get rid of their dollars before they exchange anything out. It can't be an overnight crash, and that's the point.
My guest today, Marcus Curtis, he's an author of the book, The Coming Global Currency Reset. He's also a researcher. He spends a lot of time, specifically with money and with economics. He has kind of learned the hard way, as he told you on the broadcast. Kind of stumbled into the Iraqi dinar mania, began to buy a lot of the Iraqi dinar, began to promote the Iraqi dinar, and then soon realized that it was an emperor without any clothes. It really was kind of a silly thing, and he began to move his money out of that. What are you doing now, Marcus? I know you're not a financial advisor, but I'm curious, what lessons have you taken from the book Bankruptcy of Our Nation? What are you doing based on all of your research for your own personal finances? What are you doing to protect yourself?
Well, for one, I have a 401k. For two, I have gold and I have silver. Now, I should tell you that I think that gold and silver are good investments. So I have assets I've acquired. I have savings that I've acquired. Getting out of debt, of course, is important. Reducing the amount of money you spend is, of course, important. All these things add up. And a lot of these guidelines I've got from your site. I mean, really, it was a lot of things I've read on your site that set me going in the direction of financial stability. And really, it amounts to accountability. You have to be accountable to your financial plan. You can't say, well, I'm going to buy this currency. I don't have to worry about it. It's going to revalue, and I don't have to do any financial planning at all.
That's right.
And that's what people are doing. People are falling for all this stuff. They're saying, well, I'm going to be independently wealthy. There's no need for me to follow anybody's plan or guidance because, this get-rich-quick scheme is going to make me wealthy, and I don't have to worry about it.
That's right. That's a definite problem that we see today. Marcus, what about multiple streams of income? I know that you've been designing some different blogs. You're doing some different things to create multiple streams of income. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I am a musician, and so what I do is I have a website now, and it has free guitar lessons. It has free services on it. Marcus Curtis Music at the end. And basically, you can go there and you can download over 100 applications that are free. And there's free guitar lessons on there. It's on YouTube. And there's various ways to stream income from this. Well, for one, you could put ad revenue on your site and affiliate marketing. You could sell things on your site like books and that kind of thing. I have another book I've written about music that's getting ready to come out. Also, there's playing out. It's a source of revenue for networking and getting jobs, gigs, studio musician. There's all kinds of things that you can do to network your income.
Marcus, I want to bring up also your book, The Coming Global Currency Reset, that you published through Kindle. Mm-hmm. You looked at several different options. I even talked to you before about that whenever you asked about, different publishing options and whatnot. You decided to go with, straight up ebook, right through Kindle. There's a lot of people in our audience who probably have a book in them. In fact, I would say almost all of them have a book in them that they could write.
Right.
Just tell us real briefly in conclusion what that process was like. You know, do you have any tips or wisdom keys that you can pass on to our folks who might be thinking about doing something similar? What was that process like? Would you do it again? That kind of stuff.
I plan on doing it several times more. In fact, I got my first royalty check not too long ago. So it's profitable. But there's three things you got to know. Amazon is only 60% of the market. There are other ebook retailers out there, Barnes & Noble, iBooks. You want to get into those markets too. So you don't want to just do the Kindle. You want to have your book everywhere. So in order to do that, you can get a distributor. And the distributor I use is a company called Smashwords. And when you go into Smashwords and you upload your book, they will put it on every ebook store shelf around the world, around the globe, and it'll appear on everything. People bought my book for their iPad in that format, or you could buy it in the Amazon format. And so the thing I did is I typed my book in Microsoft Word. I kept it simple. I kept it to the point. I put over 60 links so that people can go and find out this information on their own. They don't have to take my word for anything. Everything is resourced and backed up. And then I uploaded it. I got a cover together. I have a friend that helped me with the cover. And the cover is the most important thing because that's what's going to catch people's attention. And you just upload it to the site and they do the conversion for you. And it's cheap and inexpensive to do. The one thing you're going to want to do is copyright, which you can do through the Library of Congress online. It only costs $35. And the most important thing is that when you write an ebook, the most important thing to remember is that you are the publisher. So you have to do every aspect of that, which means you're responsible for the sales of the book. So one of the things you can do is you can start a blog or a website or something simple like that, and you don't even have to spend any money, and you just blog about what you're writing about to promote your book. And then you can go into forums on the topic. Let's say you're interested in cars. You could write a book about cars, and then you could start a blog about cars, and then you go into public forums about cars, and you leave your blog and your book in your description of your profile. And people will click on that because you're visiting all these different forums. So you're out there networking, and that brings the traffic to your blog, and it brings it to where you're selling your book. So it's up to you to sell it once you upload it. On Smashwords, they have over 350,000 books. And so you're a needle in a haystack. You have to direct people to your book in order to get them to buy it.
That's great advice, Marcus. My guest today, Marcus Curtis, author of the book, The Coming Global Currency Reset, a passionate researcher on money and economics, and a student of FTMDaily and all of our philosophy here. It's great to have you on the program, Marcus. Look forward to having you back soon.
It's been my pleasure to be here. Thank you.